TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations. Shalom and good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, U.S. President Donald Trump threatens that all hell would break out unless Hamas releases all Israeli hostages by noon on Saturday. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reiterates Israel's unwavering commitment to achieving all of the war goals which Jerusalem has set for the Gaza Strip. Russia announces that it is not opposed to U.S. President Donald Trump's plan for the Gaza Strip. The Israel-Hamas ceasefire deal, as part of which the Islamist Hamas is expected to release all hostages in 3 separate phases in exchange for far-reaching Israeli concessions, is on the brink of collapse. During an address to Israel's parliament, or Knesset in Hebrew, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu initially pushed back at the Israeli opposition's motion of no confidence in his governing coalition, albeit a systemic bid that is brought to a vote almost on every given Monday.
We may be at Parliament for a vote of no confidence, but I am returning from Washington, where there was a major vote of confidence, a vote of confidence in the State of Israel, a vote of confidence in the Israel Defense Forces, and a major vote of confidence in the Israeli government.
Prime Minister Netanyahu went on to address the dramatic paradigm shift vis-à-vis bilateral relations between Washington and Jerusalem following the transition of power in the United States.
Following a challenging time, which needs to be said genuinely, a very challenging period, we are seeing eye to eye with the U.S. administration the essential issues that are on the agenda in the Middle East, to include achieving all of our war goals, including the elimination of Hamas, returning all of our hostages home, ensuring that Gaza will no longer pose a threat to Israel, returning our northern and southern residents to their communities safely, communities which we will rebuild and help flourish.
The Israeli premier continued by praising the American president for his revolutionary vision for the Gaza Strip, while pointing out to expressed appreciation by senior U.S. officials for Israel's undeniable military successes versus Iran, as well as its regional proxies.
President Trump and all senior U.S. administration officials praised the decisions we made to break the Iranian axis, from the eradication of Hamas through the pager attack, the elimination of most of Hamas's missile and rocket and missile stockpiles, the elimination of the underground array of the Radwan force, its removal from our northern border, and the significant damage to Iran's air defenses. But I want to tell you above all what they talked about. Above all, our American friends praised the elimination of the mass murderers, Haniya, Deif, Sinwar, and of course Nasrallah. And as we expected, the elimination of Nasrallah broke the axis of evil. It also led to the fall of Assad. At the same time, we destroyed the weapons array of Assad's army and seized dominant territories opposite the Golan. All of those significant achievements were until recently regarded as unimaginable dreams.
Netanyahu also seized the opportunity to address his political rivals over their claims, alleging that without the forceful hand of President Trump before entering office, the hostage release deal would have never materialized.
It was my proposal, which they initially rejected. However, after intensifying pressure and the significant backing that we received from President Trump, they surrendered, accepting a deal that I brought forth and which I had approved. We did not move from our red lines, not even by a nanometer. They moved, they agreed to our demands. By the way, they wanted, and there were those amongst us who wanted us to accept their diktats, that we would receive, listen carefully, 12 hostages or 14 hostages. I said that it would not happen. I demanded to double, to maximize the number of hostages to be released. And those who left the plenum now, they left because we insisted on this. Because I insisted on this. And I intend to insist for the release of them all. This is the truth. Everything else is a blatant lie.
Amid rising concerns amongst the Israeli public over prospects for the hostage release deal to expire prematurely, alongside outrage over the physical state of the three hostages who were released this past Saturday, the Islamist Hamas announced blatantly that it would postpone the release of any hostages this upcoming Saturday in a clear attempt to extort Israel for additional concessions. The announcement by the Islamist Hamas terror group infuriated the Israeli public, with demonstrations calling for the immediate release of all hostages from Hamas captivity without further delay.
I don't care what they say. They all need to come home now. Every single person that doesn't belong there needs to come home now. Every single one of them. No need to delay, nothing. Send them all home. This is where they all belong. Every last one of them belongs here, every single person. All of the hostages, all of them. Not the ones that are supposed to come tomorrow or the next day. All of them now. This is where they belong. This is their home.
Israel's defense establishment believes that Hamas is essentially bluffing, knowing full well that the consequences of renewed hostilities in the Gaza Strip would further deplete its already ailing ranks. Nevertheless, Jerusalem held a security cabinet meeting in which it instructed the IDF to prepare for any scenario. Meanwhile, in Washington, U.S. President Donald Trump raised the stakes for the Islamist Hamas, which is a designated foreign terrorist organization, by effectively setting a deadline for the release of all hostages.
Well, I would say this, and I'm going to let that be because that's Israel's decision, but as far as I'm concerned, if all of the hostages aren't returned by Saturday at 12 o'clock, I think it's an appropriate time. I would say cancel it and all bets are off and let hell break out. I'd say they ought to be returned by 12 o'clock on Saturday, and if they're not returned, all of them, not in drips and drabs, not 2 and 1 and 3 and 4 and 2. Saturday at 12 o'clock, and after that, I would say all hell is going to break out. And I don't think they're going to do it. I think a lot of them are dead. I think a lot of the hostages are dead. I think it's a great human tragedy what's happened.
While President Trump set an unequivocal deadline for Saturday at midday, the American leader underscored that Israel maintains the right to overwrite his unequivocal threat.
I'm speaking for myself. Israel can override it, but from myself, Saturday at 12 o'clock, and if they're not here, all hell is going to break out.
Earlier, during an interview to Fox News Channel's Brett Baier, President Trump was asked about his plans for the Gaza Strip and whether he believes Egypt and Jordan would agree to make a deal.
We'll build beautiful communities for the 1.9 million people. We'll build beautiful communities, safe communities. Could be 5, 6, could be 2, but we'll build safe communities a little bit away from where they are, where all of this danger is. In the meantime, I would own this. Think of it as a real estate development for the future. It would be a beautiful piece of land.
Would the Palestinians have the right to return?
Spent. No, they wouldn't, because they're going to have much better housing, much better. In other words, I'm talking about building a permanent place for them. Because if they have to return now, it'll be years before you could ever. It's not habitable. It will be years before it could happen. I'm talking about starting to build, and I think I could make a deal with Jordan. I think I could make a deal with Egypt. You know, we give them billions and billions of dollars a year.
President Trump subsequently noted in response to reporters' questions that if Egypt and Jordan reject his Gaza plan outright, he would consider withholding aid from both countries. Meanwhile, in Ankara, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan addressed President Trump's plan for Gaza, insisting that it is not worth considering or even discussing from Turkey's perspective.
Bir defa şunu açıkça söylemek isterim.
I would like to state this clearly once. The proposals put forward by the new American administration regarding Gaza with the pressure of the Zionist lobby have nothing worth considering or discussing from our perspective. These are purely preoccupations with nonsense. They are efforts to pound water in a mortar. No one has the strength to remove the people of Gaza from their forever and eternal homeland that has been theirs for thousands of years. Palestine belongs to the Palestinians, with Gaza, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem. The people of Gaza, who have not left their land despite all the cruelty, savagery, and attacks of Israel for 471 days, will continue to stay in Gaza, to live in Gaza, and to protect Gaza. No matter what kind of packaging they are wrapped in, any plans to separate Gaza from the Gazans will crash into the strong wall of the truth and be smashed into smithereens.
It is interesting to know that in contrast to the voiced rejection by leaders of Turkey and every single Arab and Islamic nation, Russia, on the other hand, said it does not oppose the American plan for the Gaza Strip, while noting that they are waiting for the unveiling of the comprehensive plan of action.
It's worth waiting for some details here if we're talking about a coherent plan of action. We are talking about almost 1.2 million Palestinians who live there, and this is probably the main issue. These are the people who were promised a two-state solution to the Middle East problem by the relevant UN Security Council resolutions. There are a lot of questions like that. We don't know the details yet, so we have to be patient.
Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. I'm Jonathan Hassan, wishing you an Erev Mevorach, and God willing, we will see you during our next update. Until then, Shalom from Jerusalem.